Hello, everybody. Welcome to Relax with Animal Facts. I am Steph Wolf, and I'm here to learn with you about our furry, scaly, and slimy friends all over the world, all over the globe. So I'm going to start mixing up my intros. I believe that I've been doing the same thing for a while, so I want to switch it up a little bit. So today is a very special episode. It is our first ever fan-submitted on the show fan-submitted animal that we're going to be learning about today. So I'm going to give a shout out to Geraldine, a fan of the show that wrote in and gave some suggestions as to what they would have liked to hear on the podcast, and here we are. So if you would like to hear your animal or whatever animal you'd like to hear about, you can send me an email at relaxwithanimалfacts@gmail.com. I get back to all of you, and that way, whatever you submit, I can possibly talk about on the show, and I'll shout you out if you'd like. You can always leave me a note saying it's okay if you say my name on the podcast or whatnot, just so I know. So again, I absolutely love the engagement with you guys. If you want to hear an animal that you very much like, you can go ahead and send me an email. I always get super giddy and excited whenever I see an email come in from you guys, because this is a fairly new podcast still. It's only a little bit over a month old, so whenever I get an email from you guys, I always get super excited that people are getting passionate out there and are really appreciating the show. So for any new listeners out there, this is a show where I delve deep into, I don't like to use the word delve deep because sometimes it's some of the superficial facts that we cover too, but we go into an animal, we delve in together. I am not a biologist of any kind or like some sort of animal biologist or animal scientist. I am just like you, or maybe I'm not just like you. Maybe you do have more degrees than I have letters in my name, but regardless, I am coming to you guys with a fresh perspective on everything. I Google the facts, I go through them all and compare them to the animals that we've already learned about in the previous podcast. So I'm learning and you're learning and everyone's learning together, all while we are relaxing and in a safe environment for all of you guys. So let's get into our first fan-submitted show. So I got my facts today from animalia.bio, and that's under Southern Pudu. I got it from deerworlds.com and animalfacts.com, theanimalfacts.com, not just animal facts, but the animal facts. And we are talking about the amazing Pudu here. I have never heard of this animal before it was written into me, but these guys are the world's smallest deer. And if you've never seen these guys before, it is incredibly amazing to see them walking around because they're very, very small. Nothing like you would expect. It's just like you took a deer, shrunk it down by over half, I'm going to say 3/4, and you have a Pudu, especially the younger ones. The southern Pudu being slightly larger than the northern Pudu. So if anyone is in the middle of the day, maybe if it's late at night, you don't want to check, that's totally fine. You can just relax. But for any of you guys that are kind of walking around out there, you can always Google the Pudu and look, because I promise you it's worth your time. So these are one of the cutest animals we've done on the show so far. So the southern Pudus are natives of southwestern Argentina and southern Chile. I don't know if we've covered any animals that are native to there just yet, so that's exciting. They live between the Maule river in the north and Chilo province in the south. So basically South America is where they're native to. So they have preferences for really temperate rainforests with bamboo thickets and dense underbush because, as we've learned before, a lot of animals really, whether it's a preference or not, because generally it's something that evolution has allowed for, there's animals that are adapted to be where they are, and they are there for an absolute reason. And in the case of our little deer friend here, they like these forests because it provides camouflage, not necessarily camouflage, more hiding spots. And if you're wondering out there what the difference is, camouflage usually has to do with an adaptation that is a physical feature. So we see in the chameleon, right? The chameleon is probably one of the most popular animal that uses camouflage that we know of. So differentiating camouflage from just having hiding spots. Hiding spots are just places that animals can go to hide, regardless of if they match the environment or not. Camouflage, for any of you younger listeners out there, that is a mechanism. It's a totally adaptive mechanism that evolution allows all these animals to, or not all these animals, but plenty of animals to use to their advantage, which is that they physically represent their environment. And there's some animals out there that can even sort of morph into whatever they'd like. So we see with, there's plenty of octopi, right, for example, that have these capabilities of morphing super quickly to its environment to camouflage. It is absolutely incredible, and certain species of octopus I would love to cover on the show. So with the southern Pudu, or not the southern Pudu, both the northern and the southern ones, they look very similar, just like as you imagine a deer would, but it went through kind of a shrink ray. They were able to hide in these bamboo thickets and the dense underbush. And, these animals I cannot imagine would survive incredibly well in some of the other environments that we've covered on the show already. So, other kind of woodlands, or maybe even places where there's not much, there's not many hiding places, because then these guys would definitely be prey to even birds, right? Large birds. We have eagles. There's different sorts of birds that would definitely prey on these guys, because especially when they're young, they are incredibly small, and a lot smaller than I thought of, right? When I first read the email, I said, wow, the world's smallest deer, okay? And I searched it up, and it was a lot smaller than what I imagined. I just imagined one that was maybe 20% smaller than the largest one, but these guys really are small. So talking about their physical characteristics, they are about 7.5 to 13 kilograms. For any of you guys in the United States or Canada, we generally go by pounds, 17 to 28.6 pounds. So I'm trying to maybe relate this to an animal that we've already covered. We've covered a lot of large animals already. I think they are actually pretty close to the red panda that we've covered before in terms of weight. I think the Pudu even weighs maybe a little bit more. They are about 70 to 83 centimeters with a height of around 35 to 38 centimeters. So fairly small, right? But it's all relative, and in this case, it's relative to the other members of its family, which are larger deer and whatnot, because these guys even have antlers. When you relate these to the other sorts of large deer, the regular deer, total difference, right? 35 to 38 centimeters, we're talking maybe 30% of the size of a regular deer, maybe even less. And they have a lifespan of around 10 to 17 years. So we see that we've covered many animals in the recent episodes that are sort of shorter lifespans, but for example, we did the sea turtle, right? The sea turtle had a much longer lifespan. Of course, turtles live for a tremendously long time in comparison to some of the other animals, but 10 to 17 years is like the average for many dogs and house cats and whatnot. So it's the same case for these guys. And due to the southern Pudu's small size, they often have to stand on their hind legs or spring onto logs to reach higher vegetation. So in the case of, we covered the giraffe in previous episodes too. So it's funny that we have the other side of the spectrum now, where we have these animals that, rather than having these huge necks that they have to often put down to get things, we have these small deer which stand on their hind legs and jump onto different sorts of things in their environment to be able to reach higher vegetation. So it's just funny to me that there's giraffes that have to reach down low for things like to drink water, and they have to do these awkward sorts of movements to be able to reach it. And then we have the complete polar opposite, and we have these little deer having to hop up onto logs and to stand up on their little hind legs to be able to reach the things that the giraffe has to lean all the way down for. Reaching higher vegetation being, of course, relative to this animal's size, because higher vegetation for other animals is going to be totally different, right? So, giraffes or maybe elephants or whatnot, right? Higher vegetation could mean something totally different. So the context really matters here. The southern Pudu has a coat of fur which is short, sort of glossy, and dark brown to reddish brown in color. And the insides of their ears and lips are orangish in color. So you can sort of paint a picture, use your imagination a little bit. If you already haven't searched up these guys, you can imagine what they look like, right? So you have a dark brown, short, glossy-haired, sort of small deer reaching up for vegetation. And see later, maybe you can Google it and see how close you were in your mind as to how these guys looked. Maybe you were spot on. And just to let you guys know something really quickly about these fan submitted animals, you guys might send me some really niche animals, and by niche I mean a little bit under-researched in comparison to some other animals. So I might not have as much information about them. If I have enough to make a show, I will. I think the cutoff time would probably be under 20 minutes long if I could get any kind of, if I couldn't get enough material to go over that point. But for some of your fan submitted things, they might be on the shorter end, they might be on the longer end. It really, really depends on how much research is available for me to kind of grab from. And with the Pudu, I had to really go through a bunch of the research to get sort of a page of facts. So this episode might be a little bit shorter, possibly. I don't know until I'm done, but it's just so something you guys know. I think the general thing might be that it might be a little bit less time than we're used to, like maybe 5 minutes less, depending on just how much I can find. So that's just a quick little side note for any of you guys that are looking to send me things. Absolutely, if you really want to hear something, you can send it in, and I will just do the research and see if I have enough. And whether I have enough or not will really determine whether I take that animal or not. So let's move on here. So the babies are known as fawns. So I think we've covered animals that have babies named fawns. They have white spots. Now, the origin of these white spots, or rather the use of them, because generally physical characteristics serve a purpose for some reason, but they presume it's for camouflage. It's not 100%. But if you can imagine in a rainforest, for me, when I imagine a reddish-brown sort of color with white spots, as to what that could camouflage into, possibly looking maybe like vegetation of some way or of some shape or form. I'm not exactly sure. The males have short spiked antlers, which are shed every year, specifically around July. So these guys still have spiked antlers. They can still be a formidable opponent depending on who they're fighting here, because they can grow up to 30 pounds, right? Males generally. But we'll get into who their main predation sources are in just a second. So they are browsers. We covered the rhinoceros, and which some of them were browsers. I think it was the black rhinoceros, possibly. But they eat leaves of trees, ferns, vines, fungi, or fungi, depending on where you're from, fruit, berries, herbs, and shrubs. They will also eat hay, cereal, nuts, acorns, and salt. When it says cereal, of course, I don't believe these guys are having any Lucky Charms or anything like that. It's more to refer to nature's sort of cereal there. So I guess a mix of things. But they have a fairly open diet when it comes to vegetation, so they don't just eat maybe certain kinds of leaves or whatnot, but generally they have a wide range. So berries and fruit always are a treat for these guys. Herbs and shrubs. Hay, it said hay, but I'm trying to think of where you will really find hay in a temperate rainforest. Maybe I'm not getting something here, but I don't really foresee that. Nuts, acorns, salt, yeah, that seems completely fine. But in terms of hay, I'm not really getting it in my head. Maybe there's something about rainforests that I don't know. Maybe there is something that is kind of like hay or forms hay over time. No idea. So these little guys are polygonists, which are a type of breeding or reproduction sort of pattern among the species. And the vast majority of animals are polygonists. It's spelled Polygynnists, and it's not spelled how I thought it was, which was polygamists, not polygonists. Apparently, there is a difference. Polygynous means that one male will have several female mates. I suppose, in contrast to polygamists, which means that I guess males and females will breed with whoever. That's what I assume is the difference. I really tried to figure it out, but it was a little bit convoluted as to the exact answer. But the most important part here is that they are polygynists, which means that one male will have several female mates. So because we talked about before that they prefer these rainforests that have bamboo thickets, they like to climb on bamboo thickets in order to reach higher branches. So not only do they hop on logs and other sorts of things, they will climb these bamboo thickets. So they really use their environment to its fullest, from what it seems like. Being able to use your environment to your advantage is something that requires a sense of intelligence and a sense of awareness, maybe not conscious awareness like human beings, but a certain kind of awareness and intelligence. And it varies among different species, just like how we see chimpanzees being able to use tools in their environment, just like humans did so many thousands of years ago. And still to this day, we use tools. But deer don't really use tools, but they will use their environment in this way, which is taking advantage of these tall bamboo thickets to reach higher branches for vegetation. So these animals are very playful, which I imagined right off the bat. They will run, skip, and fight playfully with one another. They scrape their teeth and rub their antlers on trees and certain plants. These are similar behaviors to regular deer, not just the small ones. And weather does seem to have a role in their level of activity. So southern Pudus are more active on windy days as compared to calm days, which indicates their intolerance of heat. It seems as though these guys like more of a chilly breeze than they do just like a really beating down with sun and with heat. I always imagined, and I always thought I would love being an animal researcher, but for some of these studies, it must be incredibly difficult, right? This must have been a very long-term study, at least I hope so, where they study the role of weather and specifically the effects on these little deer. That must be an incredibly fun project to take on as an animal researcher. I'm sure that I would very much enjoy it. If there's any animal researchers out there, make sure to write in. I'm really curious if we have any maybe even someone learning in college or university right now. I'm interested to hear about you guys. Anyways, southern Pudus are able to last for long periods without drinking because they obtain the most water they need from succulent plants. That's a general theme I think that many of these herbivores follow, is that they will get moisture from the things that they eat and vegetation, just like on the giraffe episode where they get the majority of their or pretty much all of their moisture from leaves, but they will, just like Pudus, drink water if need be, if there is something to do with the climate that is affecting the amount of moisture in these plants that they eat. So they're able to last for long periods without drinking. I guess similar to camels, obviously relative, it's all relative. Camels, of course, can last much, much longer without because of a variety of factors that I think we'll talk on another podcast, because those guys are an amazing creatures that I would love to go over here and learn some more stuff about. So a southern Pudu will groom itself by licking its coat and combing its fur with its incisors. So grooming, again, especially a very important tool for many animals to keep clean, because they don't have running water and baths and all that kind of stuff, so they have to do it themselves. So grooming is a very, it's not only for a lot of species just for hygiene, but it's also sort of a ritual. So one that you can establish connections and really bond with each other in a group by grooming. I don't think that the Pudus do this, but it's seen in a lot of primate species. But let's move on. There are various conservation efforts in place for this small deer because they're really in trouble. They're facing a really dwindling population in the many areas that it's in. Because they are so small, not only is there a problem due to things like habitat loss, but there's things like that they are a common prey for many predators, so including cougars, owls, eagles, foxes. So large birds, owls and eagles, those guys are really hard to hide from. Even if you have these sort of things that you can hide in, like with the bamboo thickets and with sort of a dense underbush, owls and eagles have incredible vision, and they're able to, they're absolute machines. They're able to really discern things out of their environment. Their eyesights are amazing. So, but same with cougars and foxes. So, other kind of big cats and whatnot. So there are conservation efforts in place, which is good, and a good way to increase their population, which I found to be surprising at first, was to place them in captivity. So these guys, as you can imagine, are really hot attractions at zoos. Who doesn't want to hold a baby deer? Let's be honest, guys. I would absolutely love to hold a baby deer, but conservation efforts really at the forefront is placing these guys in captivity, raising them under conditions where they are not a constant prey or a very vulnerable prey for all these different animals, because they're small, but they can just kind of breed happily amongst themselves in a zoo. So it's a good conservation effort. I really there's usually things that I like to talk about where you can help the animals that are on the episode. But in this case, there are already conservation efforts happening, and there's not. I assume you can donate to a charity of some kind. So maybe if you'd like to do that, you could. So they use scent to communicate, and they rub their antlers of the preorbital gland to leave scent behind. So scent being another common theme that we've seen among animals. This scent is important for communicating a variety of things. It's usually things to do with reproductive health, or or territory marking or whatnot. So it's the same with these guys. And to escape predators, they will run in zigzag patterns. Zigzag patterns are really good, especially if you will see deer and antelope do this. The zigzagging is for a reason, because you would think, why don't you just run in a straight line, right? But the majority of these predators, as they go in a straight line, they build a sort of momentum, and they get faster and faster and faster. And depending on the predator, if they are faster than what they're chasing, it's just a time game. It's not if they're going to catch the prey. It's going to be when. So running in a zigzag pattern allows for the stopping of momentum. They constantly have to readjust themselves and whatnot. So not only are they spending the energy of the predator, because many predators can work in really short bursts, but the prey can last longer, and that's the problem with the cheetah as well, right? Cheetah's super fast, but they can only run in really small intervals. So by running in a zigzag pattern, you're able to really wear out the predator, and at the same time stop the momentum in its tracks, which is a really good adaptive mechanism to be able to escape danger. So that is the end of the actual facts. As many of you know, I love to end the podcast with something to do with the name. With the name Pudu, I could not find anything, guys. I looked around websites. I tried just Google Translate. I wanted to see if it was from another language, maybe some sort of South American language. I could not find anything. When I typed in Pudu, it just gave me Pudu, and there wasn't any kind of cute story. So this episode, with this fan-submitted episode, plenty of fun, but however, there is no end kind of name fact for you. So I apologize for that. But again, thank you so much to Geraldine for sending in this submission. These guys are incredibly cute, and I loved learning about them, and I'm sure that many of you did at home too. If you want to hear your animal on the podcast, send me an email at relaxwithanimalfacts@gmail.com. You can give me a question, comment, concern, any kind of thing like that. Then you can tell me what you would like to hear on the podcast, and you can tell me if you'd like for me to say your name on the podcast, because I like to give credit where credit is due. So, round of applause for our first fan-submitted podcast. Super fun, and I will see you on the next podcast, either of my choice or by one of you guys out there. So thank you very much for listening, and I will see you on the next show. Take care.